right now?
Yep.
All right, there you go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We'll just give it a few minutes here and let everyone kind of pop into the webinar. Hopefully wherever you are in Alberta or Canada or the world is maybe not quite as cold as we are in Edmonton, but I think we're having a bit of a cold snap across certain parts of the country and especially Alberta here. So hopefully everyone's bundled up inside and staying warm to join us to watch this webinar here today. My name is Carrie Morton. I'm the Director of Business Support Services at BusinessLink, and I want to thank you for joining our webinar today. We'll just start with a bit of an acknowledgement. So at BusinessLink, we're honored to provide services to all entrepreneurs and specialty services to our immigrant and Indigenous entrepreneurs. We are inclusive in our cultural understanding and awareness of the histories of our country. So with that, we'll start this event with a land acknowledgement to recognize all of Alberta. We want to acknowledge that in the province of Alberta, we're situated on the traditional territories of Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, ancestral homeland of diverse First Nations groups, Métis and Indigenous people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial and whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. We pay respects to the Indigenous people of this land, past, present, and future, while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land on which we reside. So thank you again for joining us for the webinar today. We have Michelle Watson and Marcy Soehn from Procurement Services with Service Alberta joining us to present on how to sell to the Government of Alberta. Welcome to both of them. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get into the topic. So if you have any questions that you would like Marcy or Michelle to answer during the webinar, please just click Q&A in the meeting controls and type a message into the question box. So any questions that you have can be put into Q&A. We do have a couple of questions that we'll ask of you throughout the presentation as well. So to respond to those, just type your answers in the chat box. You can put those to all participants. We'll also have a few polls on the screen. So when you see those pop up, you can respond to those just by clicking the relevant button. So just a note that the information provided in this session is for general knowledge and should not be taken as professional advice. With that, I'll introduce our presenters today, Michelle Watson and Marcy Soehn. So Michelle is a graduate of the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology and has been with the Government of Alberta for 18 years. She worked as the supporting contract manager during the construction of the Alberta SuperNet for 7 years, managed a number of procurements during her role as a procurement contracting manager for 10 years, and is currently the director of the Procurement Resource Center with Service Alberta. In her role as director at the Procurement Resource Center, Michelle is responsible for establishing strategic direction of procurement practices in the Government of Alberta with respect to vendor and trade development, technology advancements, and policy and process development. Fostering trade agreement awareness with respect to guidelines and processes for a better understanding of the obligations public entities must follow, and in an effort to promote rural growth, reach out to suppliers in Alberta communities to bring awareness about opportunities in Alberta's public sector. Welcome, Michelle. Great to have you here today. And Marcy started with the Government of Alberta in 2004 and has never looked back. She maintains 2 purchasing designations, the Certified Professional Public Buyer and the Certified Professional Public Officer with the National Institute of Government Purchasing. Her experience is mainly as a manager within procurement services, responsible for the acquisition of goods and associated services $10,000 and higher. Marcy loves the diversity of the goods and the fact that what appears to be the most straightforward acquisition can throw you curveballs. She recently has accepted a temporary position as project contract manager, where her experience will lead her more into acquiring services. Great, so thank you, Michelle and Marcy, for being here today. I'll let you take it away.
All right, well, thank you very much, and good morning, Carrie and everyone. And thank you very much to Business Link for having us here today. We are excited to have this opportunity to be here and talk to you all about selling to the government of Alberta. Our goal for today is to provide you with an understanding how the government of Alberta purchases goods, services, and construction, and why we do the things we do, and how we do them. Before we get started, we wanted to take a quick poll about from the audience to understand your knowledge of what is Government of Alberta purchasing. How much information do you know about what we do? Do you know nothing? Maybe a little. Maybe your knowledge is average, or maybe you have a lot of knowledge. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to respond.
And obviously there's no right or wrong answer. It's just going to help Michelle and I just give us a little bit more background of your knowledge, how we can navigate better through our information that we provide you guys this morning.
All right, how are we doing with the poll?
Excellent.
Nothing. Fabulous. That means you're going to get a lot of information out of this session, we hope. All right. So what is the market? So when we look at the spend across the government of Alberta, there are three main categories in which the government of Alberta purchases: goods, services, and construction. These purchases are done across all 22 departments with over 45 agencies, boards, commissions, and crown corporations, with over 2,200 purchasing officers. On average, the government of Alberta will spend about $575 million in goods, $1.75 billion in services, and over $2.75 billion in construction. So what does that really mean? It means that the government of Alberta is still doing business, and we still have a need to buy goods, services, and construction to continue to deliver the programs and offer the services that we do to all Albertans. Marcy.
Yes, Michelle. So in order just to expand on the goods, services, and construction, so we want to make sure that you as the vendors have a good understanding of the three commodity types, or the three types that the government of Alberta does acquire. So in the Q&A area within the presentation, could you please give us an example of a good that the government of Alberta may purchase from you, a vendor? So keep in mind, anything tangible would be a good. And we're just going to rely on our moderator with Business Link to give us some of those answers that may be coming in.
Yeah, so if anyone has any ideas of a good, something more physical that the government can purchase from you, just pop that into the chat.
So things like a water bottle, perhaps.
Yeah, so we've got one coming in. I'll leave that one to the services. Got a couple of services coming in, so we'll talk about that later. But one example here of road salt.
Exactly,
Yep.
yes. Road salt, gravel has actually
Yep.
been one of the commodities that we have also acquired. Excellent.
We've got masks, hand sanitizer.
Definitely the PPE equipment has been a the various commodities that we have been acquiring both through our office as well as on emergency basis as well.
Yep. Notebooks, calendars, office supplies. Definitely. A basket for work from home safety items, so some sort of safety related goods, possibly art products. That person's not quite sure. Maybe you can confirm on that.
It definitely, and I could see the art products with the unfortunate situation with more of us working from home right now. It's going to be interesting over the next 5 to 10 years to see what will happen with office spaces and to see how much of that will be a requirement in the near future. But definitely, if you are in any office spaces right now, the legislative grounds, there is some artwork that is going to be posted and put on the walls within those office spaces. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I think the last kind of good here would be ground coffee, coffee beans.
So that would be, well, a little bit of a gray area on that one, actually. And the reason that I say that is because it could be considered a food item or catering services. So that one could be a little bit gray. And obviously from a taxpayer's perspective, not something that we would encourage that offices are buying and
Right.
spending taxpayers on,
Right.
like great examples.
Yeah, and we do have one note here just looking for where do I find where, you know, what goods and services the government is buying. So that's definitely what we're talking about today.
Sure, we're going to get to that in our presentation. Absolutely, we're going to share that with you.
Yeah.
So who buys these goods for the government of Alberta? So this is important information, and more of this will become relevant as to why we have the breakdown as we do. If it is a goods under $10,000, departments can acquire those themselves. So what that means is they can obtain, at minimum, they still need to get 2 bids from you as a vendor, as we are spending taxpayers' dollars, and we always want to make sure that we are receiving the best value for those dollars. However, if it's goods over $10,000, then there's a more formal process which is completed, and procurement services within Service Alberta, which is the area that Michelle and I work, we are then responsible for doing a formal tender process for those goods. And as the earlier question as to where those opportunities, we're going to get to that within our presentation as well.
Excellent.
So question number 2, can you give us an example of a service the government of Alberta may purchase from you as a vendor? And I do believe there was perhaps 1 or 2 of those that was presented during the question of a goods purchase.
Yep. Definitely. We do have a quick question on the $10,000 that was mentioned on the last slide. Is that $10,000 kind of for like an annual contract, monthly, or per occurrence?
So the way that that would work is it's for a single purpose, single project. So if the total value of the goods was over $10,000 for a project, that is how they would need to determine the value. If it is something like office supplies, where we do what we refer to as a standing offer contract, which when we get later in the presentation too, we will show you where that list of standing offers is available. That would be based on the annual aggregate value of those goods. Great question.
Great. Yes, we do have a lot of examples of services from folks here as well. So consulting, maybe design, construction services.
Consulting, yes.
Yeah, lots of different kinds of consulting for sure. Waste management.
Yes.
Let's see. We also have training. So
yes.
Training.
Excellent.
Yeah. Event planning services, perhaps. Let's see. Cultural awareness training.
Yes, lots of different training.
Yeah.
And I think I saw earlier too, there was a translation services.
Mm-hmm. Security services, road maintenance, definitely media production, audio production.
Yeah, excellent.
Those
Yeah.
are all great
You guys are on the ball this morning.
And they said they didn't know very much. What?
Right?
What are you talking about? Absolutely. Lots of services opportunities. And contingent labor is a large volume of our services that we procure for a lot of short-term engagement.
Oh, Michelle, you were cutting out a bit there.
Oh, sorry. So for contingent labor, which is a lot of the services that you guys were talking about, we do a lot of that for our short-term engagements. And we actually do have an opportunity called Flex Track, in which we pre-qualify a lot of contingent labor vendors and suppliers that can access that opportunity for engagements and getting the opportunities for our OCCI ONT, some administration, maybe some grants administration opportunities. So if you are interested in that, in contingent labor and providing contingent labor services to the government of Alberta, I would definitely recommend going and looking at Flex Track contract or contingent labor contracts on APC, which we'll look at to a little bit later this morning. Additional services might include, even Marcy alluded to, was food services, catering services, our telecommunication services. So all of our lovely wireless devices and our telephones, those are all types of different services that we procure. Also environmental atmospheric monitoring services, which is quite an interesting opportunity that we do as well. One thing to note for services, no matter the type of value, whether it's 100,000, 75,000, 10,000, or 300,000.
Oh, sorry, Michelle, there's just a comment that they can't hear you very well.
Oh my goodness. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
I can, yes. Maybe if somebody just put in the chat, yes, they came back and said yes.
Excellent. All right, a little closer.
Thank you for letting us know.
Yes, thank you. So for services, it's important to understand that no matter the dollar value associated with that service, each department has the mandate and the opportunity to do their own goods services purchasing. So doesn't matter the dollar value. Of course, with the trade agreements, we understand anything that's under 75,000, best practice we provide is that they should be getting 2 quotes at a minimum from different suppliers for their services. And anything that's over $75,000 should be going and being openly competed on our Alberta Purchasing Connection.
Which we're going to explain in more detail coming up as well too. So you guys may be wondering, so when we're referring to the departments, how would you find out who those departments are? How would you, as a vendor, know where to contact them? So there is going to be a slide coming up with the key department contact link that we will be able to share. So you may have to contact us after the fact. Now that we're more virtual, we don't share the slide presentation. So it used to be that that link was within the slides that we could present. But if you want the link for that key department contact list, you can contact Michelle Watts and her information will be available at the end of the slide presentation. And that's an excellent starting point for you. And we'll explain a little bit when we get to that link in our slide deck.
Absolutely. So now that we've talked about goods and services, let's talk about construction a little bit. So when we talk about construction, there's 2 different types of construction that the Government of Alberta does. We do horizontal construction, which is your Alberta roads, maybe some power lines, maybe some fiber optic cabling. Or we also do vertical construction, which is your schools and your hospitals. These types of opportunities are usually done by Alberta Infrastructure and Alberta Transportation. They also have a website that you can go to understand how they actually do all their purchasing. There's also an opportunity for doing unsolicited proposals now. So if you have a great idea that you want to present and you've never known where to put that opportunity, the website for Alberta Transportation does have an opportunity where you can now do unsolicited proposals and you can submit your opportunity there, or your idea. Marcy, was there any other departments that we could think of that does construction services?
Yeah, so aside from Alberta Infrastructure and Alberta Transportation, which are obviously the 2 main ministries that are going to acquire construction, there also is Environment and Parks. They may do construction within the parks, the provincial parks within the province, as well as Municipal Affairs. They may be engaged with housing construction as well too. So it's not just restricted to those 2 main ministries. And again, how would you, if you are in the construction industry, how would you contact those departments? Aha, here is the link. So as I said, unfortunately, the slide deck is not being shared, but we can definitely give you this more information if you contact Michelle after the presentation, and we will give you that link.
Perfect. And I did post that into the chat as well.
Oh, excellent. Thank
you. So if folks look into the chat, they can see the key department contacts link there. Yeah.
Yes. And just a note on that list. So obviously the Government of Alberta is always changing, evolving, as with any organization. We do our best to keep it updated as we can. However, it still is a great starting point. And chances are, if the person themselves are no longer at that phone number identified, the person that is then doing that role will most likely still be at that number. And the other option too, when you dial that number, you can always try to press 0 to see if you will be redirected as well too.
Okay. We do have Sorry, just a couple of questions if we're able to
Sure.
touch on those, and maybe you will touch on these later.
Some questions popping up about APC and it being replaced, so we will touch on that later in the presentation.
Perfect. And in terms of selling to the government generally, do you have to be a registered business, or can you do it as an individual?
So depending on what is meant by registered business, in order to do business within the province of Alberta from a legal perspective, your entity does need to be registered with corporate registries. And even as an individual, the individual should still be registered with corporate registries. Michelle and I are not going to get into the legal aspects of being registered and what the requirements are to do business within the province. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Michelle, but definitely not my forte.
Yeah, and if people have questions on that piece, what are the registration options? They can contact us at Business Link.
I would think that would be an excellent.
For sure.
Yes.
Great. And maybe you'll touch on this later as well, but just around if you have an idea of for elevator and accessibility lifts and maintenance and construction, would there be one certain ministry for that, or would it be maybe?
I would start with infrastructure, and it's going to really depend within the government of Alberta if we own the building or if the building is leased. If we are leasing the space, it would most likely be the responsibility of that leasing entity. And quite often, Michelle, I believe even our building, the leasing, like Greystone, is listed right in the building somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. So that's all for now. I'll let you keep going.
Perfect. Good questions, guys.
So, in addition to this contact being your first point of contact, the one value of having this contact list is making sure that you can, if you have, again, ideas or concepts or projects that you want to throw out there, or you have an idea but you're not really sure who to talk to, look at this list and reach out to the entity that you think is best, would meet your needs there. All right, next poll.
So Michelle had mentioned before our trade agreements, and this may be something that some of you may or may not have heard about before. So in our poll question, oh, sorry, I'm just going to have to get you to put that poll question. Thank you. I can't read that. So what do the trade agreements do for you as a vendor? Do they A, show how government buy goods, services, construction? Do the trade agreements show where and how opportunities are advertised? Do they eliminate trade barriers and foster equal opportunity? Or do they provide a bid dispute mechanism? Or is it E, all of the above? Sorry, now you can pop it up. I think I'd have that memorized by now, but not quite. So I'll just give you guys about 30 seconds to put your answers in for that one. Yes, water break here for Michelle and I.
I feel like to be doing Jeopardy.
Background music. Excellent. I mean, and obviously to say C is not incorrect, but it is definitely all of the above.
Great answer as well. I don't know, Marcy, these folks said they didn't know a lot about procurement and that they're just getting these answers banging on today. Awesome work, everybody. So in addition to being fair, oh, I'm just gonna advance the slide, the power of using multiple screens. In addition to being fair, open, and transparent, the government of Alberta is now party to 6 different trade agreements, which outline how government should buy goods, services, and construction, outlines where and how opportunities are to be advertised, eliminates trade barriers, and fosters equal opportunity for all interested parties, and vendors can bid on any opportunity. You do not have to reside in the province for that posting of that opportunity. So you can be anywhere in the world and bid on our opportunities. It also establishes a bid dispute mechanism should an interested party believe that the procuring entity is not conducting business in accordance with the applicable trade agreement. So what does that really mean? It means if you think we're doing something wrong and you know the trade agreements, there is a way that you can dispute that opportunity, should you choose to. The other thing important to understand is, I don't know if you guys all know about the we exit. So as of January 1st, 2021, the United Kingdom is no longer part of the European Union, and therefore is no longer governed by our CETA, which is our Canadian European Union Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement. Say that 10 times. However, in the meantime, the parties are negotiating what we're calling the Trade Continuity Agreement, and that's going to be between Canada and the United Kingdom. There is a temporary measure as a memorandum of understanding, and this trade agreement is going to have all of the same obligations as we do under our CETA trade agreement. So one more trade agreement for all of us to understand, but not really, because it's the same. If you're ever having insomnia, one of the things that you may want to do is read all of the lovely trade agreements. I know I haven't done that, but some of you might want to. And those links can be accessed through the Alberta Purchasing Connection, which we'll talk to you about a little bit later.
And it's interesting, you know, we talk about how many trade agreements the government of Alberta is a part of now. When I started, and Michelle, we actually started at the same time, pretty close to the same time within the government of Alberta, there was one trade agreement, which was the Agreement on Internal Trade, which is one that you as the vendors may be more familiar with, which has now been replaced by the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, or as we, using our infamous acronyms, refer to as CUFTA. So they definitely have evolved over the years, and I see them, they are going to continue evolving. And I think it's important to see too that they're not going away. In fact, they are growing. And just one little tidbit, just even to add as to how it takes us, how we do our job, it even impacts our posting times and how many days we have to have the opportunity posted for you as a vendor to respond. So they really are a driving force to how us procurement professionals do our job on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Whoops.
I am not sure how this is going. Sorry, guys. All right, so there's a question. Does each ministry have a provider registration process? Karen, if we can get clarification on that question, that would be awesome.
Great. Yeah. So Sebastian, if you just want to provide a bit of clarification on your question there, what do you mean by a provider registration process? And then we can touch on that later. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So here's a great example of the trade agreements and the various thresholds. So as demonstrated on this slide, the trade agreements would only apply to the purchasing of goods, services, and construction exceeding the noted thresholds. And for our organization, and to make it very simple for us, because the NUETA agreement has the lowest dollar thresholds, these are the thresholds that we use to identify whether or not we have to actually post the opportunity publicly or not. So when we were talking about the thresholds earlier with the $10,000 and above, those opportunities for goods, and the $75,000 and above for services, and of course the $100,000 and above for construction projects. So any opportunities above those thresholds, and that's including the total value of the contract, which incorporates any extension period. So if we believe that we have a services contract that is $30,000, but we're going to have 3 years of extension, we have to take that total cost of those 3 years extensions into that total dollar value to determine whether or not the threshold would be met or exceeded. Because once we start exceeding that dollar value on that contract, that's when we have to become open and competitive to all opportunities. And of course, all those opportunities will be posted on the Alberta Purchasing Connection.
And it's important to note on there too, so when we refer to the ministries within the government of Alberta, it's not only us that the trade agreements apply to. The MASH sector, which are municipalities, academic, schools, and hospitals, they also have to apply to the, or adhere to the trade agreements. You can note though that their thresholds vary depending if it's goods, services, or construction. And part of that is the buying power. Obviously, they would be acquiring fewer goods. So they do have a higher threshold where they have to post at 75 compared to our 10,000. Services, you'll note, is the same at the 75. However, for construction, they must post openly for 200,000 versus us at the $100,000. So for you as a vendor, Government of Alberta, that means anything over 10,000 as a good, you have open opportunity to submit your bid.
Great. If we have a moment, we did have some confirmation come in from Sebastian just to clarify his question. So does each ministry in Alberta have a different process to sell services or goods to them? For example, if you want to sell to the Alberta Transportation Ministry, like does everything go through Alberta Purchasing Connection? Or kind of maybe when do you have to go ministry by ministry? We can talk about that a little bit more.
The
So I'll
opportunities
start.
are posted through Alberta Purchasing Connection. There are opportunities, like there's another site called Build Works that are Alberta construction opportunities to get posted to.
Oh, sorry, Michelle, you're cutting out.
All right, go ahead, Marcy.
Okay, sorry. I know you were having problems with your mic and you were hoping your new one today was going to work better. So as Michelle was saying, for construction opportunities, there is a specific website, Alberta Build Works. There is a link through Alberta Purchasing Connection, though. However, it is important to note, though, that the trade agreements apply to all of the Government of Alberta. It is not ministry specific. So any ministry within the Government of Alberta, as per that previous slide, those are the thresholds where they must post openly. So if there is a construction tender over 100,000, it must be posted openly. Whether it be on APC or BuildWorks, it must be posted for all of the vendors. So hopefully that answers the question properly.
Yeah, thank you.
Please add further clarification in the chat and we'll try to answer it for you.
Yes, Sebastian says yes, thank you. So we're good.
Excellent.
A couple other quick questions, or did you want to move forward with this?
Yep,
okay.
We move on.
So when you are a successful bidder, maybe either for goods or services, how does the payment work? Like, do you get the payment before the goods are provided, after? Is it 50-50? So
we are going to talk a little bit coming up here too, as far as reading the solicitation. But I'll answer that question now. So within the solicitation document, we have what we call our terms and conditions, which would form part of that solicitation. Every entity is going to have their own terms and conditions. The majority for the Government of Alberta Ministries is going to state that payment is net 30 days upon receipt of invoice. So it would contravene the Financial Act for us to do a prepayment, otherwise to pay for goods or services that we have not yet received. However, certain projects may have milestone payments that would be identified within the solicitation. So we're going to expand. I'll expand a little bit more as we talk through about reading the document, and maybe that'll help give a little bit more detail on that question.
Perfect. And we will be talking about all of these acronyms in a moment. There was a question around as well, if Alberta businesses need to register in other provinces in order to bid on those provinces, goods and services. I think we'll leave that one for now. It would probably be a matter of just checking with that province what is required.
Exactly, because we can't speak to what the legal obligations would be within each province.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're good to go with all of these lovely acronyms here.
All the acronyms, yes, the Government of Alberta is infamous for acronyms. And I'm just going to divert a little bit. When we were in the office, I was, when we had in our new office space, well, somewhat new to us, but not new office, I was sitting beside our executive director who was new to the Government of Alberta. And because I was so close, he kept coming over and he would ask me, what does this acronym mean? What does that acronym mean? And as much as I thought I knew what all the acronyms were within the Government of Alberta, and of course I want to impress the new executive director, I never could answer any of the acronyms that he was asking me until I think finally once I had the answer, and I felt like, yay, I could celebrate. I finally could answer one of his questions. So on our slide here, now we're going to start to talk about how the government of Alberta buys these goods, services, and construction. So when we're in a competitive process, we do have various procurement documents. We have a RFP, which could be a request for proposal, RFQ, request for quotes, ITT, some entities may refer to, which would be an invitation to tender, or a PQR, which is a pre-qualification request. What I'm going to comment on this is don't get hung up on what the document is called, or don't be intimidated whether it's an RFP versus an RFQ. The main thing that's going to be important for you as a vendor is to make sure that you read the document carefully. Michelle and I cannot stress this enough. Make sure that you take the time to understand what the requirements are. If it is a request for proposal, most likely there's going to be what we refer to as mandatories, which is just that. It is a must-have, versus desirables, which are nice to have. In a request for proposal, you're also going to have weighting criteria. Make sure that you read through and understand if there's a certain area within the proposal that's going to be scored higher. Make sure that you as a vendor focus on that higher weighted category. Request for quotes with the government of Alberta means that everything is a mandatory. And I'm just going to give a real simple example of that. If we're buying a tractor and it must do 50 horsepower per hour, you must meet that mandatory requirement. If you submit goods that are going to be 40 horsepower per hour, you are not going to meet the requirements and you will not be successful. Well, what should you do in that case? Always contact the procuring entity contact prior to the closing date. And why I say that is there is the chance that we may be able to amend the opportunity while it is posted. So if you have goods that don't meet the requirement, perhaps it was an oversight, perhaps the department that we're buying the goods on behalf of or the services weren't aware that that was available in the marketplace. Maybe the industry has changed. Maybe there's new technology or there's been a shift in the services that are being provided. And we will always go back to our client area and ask, can you change the requirement? And if we are, then we amend the document to make it fair for all the vendors, which then gives us, the government of Alberta, the best value. If we can't amend the document, though, we will let you know, and then that gives you the opportunity to either submit different goods or amend how you're going to change your proposal so you can be compliant as well too. And always think of it as a resume. If we ask for something in the proposal or in our solicitation document, don't assume that we're going to know that you can meet or that you can deliver on that good or service. You must tell us within your proposal that you are able to do that. That is how you are going to be evaluated. That is how you are going to be scored, is based on what you put in your proposal. Have a second set of eyes. Read what you are going to submit in your proposal. Have them read the solicitation document. Make sure it is submitted on time. That is the worst phone call that I have ever had to make to a vendor. I have had where they are 30 seconds late. They are 1 minute late. We cannot accept late bids. I have had a vendor, he was driving down to get it in on time. He got stuck in a traffic jam. He actually parked his car and started to run the solicitation, his response into us. Don't do that. Make sure that you get it into us on time. And now, you know, with our ever-changing technology here due to COVID, we've actually made it easier for the vendors now. Currently, we are accepting emailed responses. But again, read the solicitation to make sure that that is an option for you. Know how you have to submit your response. And Michelle, I'm just going to ask you to add in anything that I may have missed with this. There's so much to talk about on this slide. We could go on for hours.
This is a slide that I would love to spend like an hour on.
Right.
Right, to say these are the tidbits. These are we need you to look for. But the world of digital age, one of the critical things that you need to make sure of, while we are accepting email submissions, and while we like to think the world of digital is instantaneous, guess what? It's not. Sometimes it has to go through firewalls in our servers, and those firewalls can take 3 to 5, and in some instances, we've actually had to take 3 hours to submit. So while you're submitting electronically, make sure that you are submitting it in enough time to get through all those firewalls. An example of this, I had an experience on this where it almost killed me a little bit. I had a submission come in, the timeline was really relative, and it was demonstrated they were able to demonstrate they submitted it 30 seconds before the closing date and time. We don't like those opportunities. Had it been 30 seconds later, we would have been calling them and saying, sorry, your bid was unsuccessful or non-compliant because you didn't submit it on time. So if we can just focus on one thing, it's make sure your submission gets to us on time, because we can't do anything for you after that. It's non-compliant is non-compliant is non-compliant if it's late. So recognize that. The other thing about our contracts is typically we're in a contract A, contract B situation. So what you submit as your proposal is what we will accept. There is no negotiations after the fact, unless of course it's a negotiated RFP, which we are getting a little bit more involved in. But for the most part, all of our contracts are contract A, contract B. So what you're submitting is your best and final offer. There is no opportunity to negotiate. There is no opportunity to say, oh, but I thought I'd be able to get another chance at my pricing, because that's not how our world works. We have to accept what you propose. If there are contract terms and conditions, very much like the terms and conditions of our mandatory requirements, if there's contract terms and conditions that you can't meet as an organization, again, submit them to us prior to the closing date and time so we can get those answers for you to determine whether or not we are even open to the opportunity of changing our terms and conditions in our contract language. So just some tidbits there.
Great. Do have a quick question here around, we talked about the threshold, I think a few slides back, and if the services are worth less than 75,000, or what the government is putting out is less than 75,000 for services, it won't necessarily go on APC. So how would they bid for that in that case? That would be through those key department contacts or
Exactly.
ministries.
Yes.
That, exactly. You want to get your name known through those key contacts and let them know you exist.
Okay, but I will post that link again. So if there's a service or good you have and you think it would be relevant for a certain ministry or department, then you would get in touch with them directly if that opportunity might not be on the Alberta Purchasing Connection.
Exactly. And some departments, they may choose to post between 10 and 75 or anything under 75. So you may see opportunities below 75,000 for services or even 10,000 for goods. They are not obligated to do so though, however.
And we do have one question around having previous references. So if it's maybe a startup business and they don't have any private or government contracts of a similar nature that they've done in the past, will that hinder their application in any way?
So you will have to read the opportunities. Some RFPs may put some weighting or some heavy scoring in regards to the references. Again, contact the procuring entity if that is going to be an issue to see if there is any potential for an amendment or to see if there's a workaround on that. Michelle, I'm not sure if you have any experience with that particular situation.
Sometimes we don't necessarily do a reference. We don't score references, but we do reference checking in a lot of cases that I've been aware of. But the one thing that we are looking forward towards is more innovations and more digitalization, right? So as we move towards more innovations, we understand and recognize that some startup companies might not have the experience because they're being more innovative. For those opportunities, I would definitely talk to the contracting officer on the RFP and say, look, if I don't have references, how will this impact my ability to bid on this opportunity? And again, get that question in before the closing date and time so that they can
Not
provide
10
you a
minutes
response.
before the closing date and time.
Perfect. Okay, so that's all the questions for now. I'll let you keep going ahead.
All right, next poll. What do you do if your bid is unsuccessful, Marcy? What are some options?
So in the event you have submitted a proposal and you were not successful, and just to comment on that too in regards to the trade agreement obligations, we are obligated to post all of our award notices. So all of the award notices are on Alberta Purchasing Connection, so you will see who the successful vendor is. So in the event you are not successful, if you were a vendor, what should you do? Nothing? Should you complain to your family, friends, or pets? Or would you ask for a debrief from the procuring authority? Did I say procuring right? It kind of came out weird for some reason. It sounded weird. Just looking out my window, when it's this cold, I didn't think it was allowed to snow at the same time. I thought there was a rule on that.
Right.
Here.
Although I'm kind of liking the snow. It makes for better sledding opportunities for my child.
There you go.
All right, so how are we doing on the poll?
Okay, so we have a mix. So we do have A that say nothing, and that is totally your choice if you choose not to do anything. I mean, of course, it's great to still complain to your family, friends, and pets. That's always a good option. Or to ask for a debrief. Strongly recommend that you do choose C and that you ask for a debrief from the procuring authority. Again, this is also now a requirement of the trade agreements. And how it's not going to help you for that particular opportunity, but it definitely can give you some insight how to be successful for the next opportunity. It's great to find out where you fell short on your points and where you could have done better within your proposal. Never will we disclose the successful vendor and how they obtained their points or how they were scored on their opportunity. We will only discuss your proposal with you, but it definitely helps you in order to be successful for the next opportunity.
Absolutely.
And note too that a lot of times, most likely, depending on the entity, it is your responsibility to request the debrief, but we are obligated if you do ask to provide that to you. And I know our own practice quite often is we will let you know on the mandatories that you were not successful for, but make sure that you take the time to reach out and do ask for that debrief. So we talked about how, oh, sorry, Michelle.
It's so important that those debriefs.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we want to understand if you weren't successful, where can you improve for next time so you can be successful?
Yes.
So critical.
So now Michelle, tell us, so now we talked about how, what we used, where do these vendors find these opportunities?
So we've talked a lot throughout the presentation about APC, we've referenced it, or maybe we've called the Alberta Purchasing Connection. So the opportunities are all located on our Alberta Purchasing Connection. It is the official electronic tendering site for the Government of Alberta. It's mentioned in our trade agreements, and this is where all of our opportunities are posted. And to access this site and to access all these wonderful opportunities, it's at no cost to the suppliers, which is a great thing, because that way it's not a prohibitive cost for you guys to submit your opportunities. The other lovely thing about our Alberta Purchasing Connection site is not only do we post Government of Alberta opportunities, including all of the MASH entities, the ABC organization, so you get a lot of opportunity there. We also post jurisdictions, other jurisdictions, Government of Canada, Nova Scotia, Quebec, Ontario, all across the country. You will see different opportunities posted and will have the opportunity to look at those opportunities. And if you are interested, submit a proposal for those opportunities. As well as, like us, other organizations across the country will submit and post our bids, our opportunities on their sites as well. So lots of sharing of information across the jurisdictions, which is great for all of the suppliers across Canada and across the world, let's face it.
And it is important to note, so if you go on APC and if there is an opportunity, as an example from British Columbia, you will see the notice on Alberta Purchasing Connection with a link, but it is important to know it will actually link you back to the procurement system that the province of BC uses. So you will need to then register with, I believe BC is still using BC bids, but there will always be the notice of those other provinces on Alberta Purchasing Connection. So you are aware of them and you will have a link to go to their tendering site directly. So lots of opportunity notices for you guys to be aware of.
So now I'm going to take the opportunity to really look at the APC site and what does it actually look like that we reference. So when we look at APC, this is going to be the homepage that you're going to come into when you select the Alberta Purchasing Connection. As a vendor, you're going to go into this lovely screen called I am a vendor.
And I always like to clarify there, we get questions, well, you know, what do you as a purchaser? What if I clicked on the purchaser? I'm going to tell you the vendors right now that your homepage has way more information than I would see as a purchaser. So the only difference with us is we have administrative rights. We have the background, how we can post. We do not have all this wonderful information that Michelle's going to start to share with you guys. So do not think if logging in as a purchaser that there's any additional or great information that we're not sharing with you guys. It's just more the boring techie side of it.
Yeah, how we post everything, right?
Yeah.
So on this screen, you're going to see lots of information. It's going to talk about some of the news. So what's new and exciting about the opportunities in the world of government procurement? You'll see that there's some guidelines here, and that's for your trade agreement guideline documentation, the buying group standards and statements. Some of our departments have what we call a vendor performance management program. So if you want to understand their vendor performance management program and how that works and how you as a supplier would be impacted, there's links to those. As well, this is the bid protest mechanism. So if you ever think somebody's offside or somebody's not doing something right, you can always use this bid protest mechanism process and to figure out where you go. One of the things I do want to clarify for that bid protest mechanism is if you do not submit a proposal, that would not apply to you. So you want to make sure that you are submitting a proposal even if you don't think you might not be successful or if there's something going on. Submit that bid, because without submitting that proposal, you will not have an opportunity to do the bid protest mechanism. So that's, I want to make sure that's clear. As well, how do we do business with Alberta infrastructure, doing with business Alberta transportation, some of our general terms and conditions, what we call GSIN codes. So that's really commodity types and information that would be really relevant to the commodities that you sell or that you're selling. So if it's a tractor, there's a commodity code for a tractor that you can then quickly do a search functionality. So, and again, here's those lovely those lovely, interesting, and most
Right, Michelle, just before you jump to the trade agreements, I'm just going to have you click on the GOA standing offer.
Absolutely.
I referenced this earlier, and so I just want to show the vendors. So when we talked about our standing offer contracts, which are ongoing contracts, typically for lower value items, but items that are ordered frequently. So this list is available for you, the vendors, to see all of our standing offers that we do have for goods. Sorry, Michelle, are you able to open it or will it not?
Is it not sharing?
It didn't. If not, that's okay. I'll just speak to it. So it is a document that's going to show the commodity as to what we do have on standing offer. It's also going to show the expiry date of the contract and if there is an extension option. So why that's important to you as a vendor is if there is a particular commodity that we have on standing offer, I would be reaching out to the buyer that is also listed on that list and ask them if there's going to be a new opportunity posted to renew that contract and when it will be available to you as a vendor. And it also does show the contract value and the term of the contract. So a good tool for you guys to use as well. And if you were a successful vendor where you had a contract with the government of Alberta that was on a government-wide basis, chances are as well too, it's open to approved organizations. And there also is a bullet there that shows the list of those approved organizations. So you can use to market the goods that you have on the contract with the government of Alberta. So sorry, now you can go to your wonderful boring trade agreements. Just teasing.
No, boring trade agreements. Those are where all of them are posted. So if you ever get interested and you want to read all of them, this is where you would access them. I know we're running out of time, so I don't want to keep everybody.
I know, we got to do this. Got to quickly show them at least some searches here. Sorry, guys.
Right. So the search functionality is wonderful in APC. You can search on keywords. You can search on a reference ID. So Alberta Purchasing usually has an Alberta 2021 reference ID. Or if you know the solicitation document, you can search on that. I recognize that you can search on any jurisdiction if you have a specific jurisdiction in mind. I'm going to see if I can. Someone was asking about the City of Edmonton purchases. So I'm going to look up, and I can't search the.
Yeah, I popped in for some information on the City of Edmonton purchasing directly from their website. But yeah, if you want to show any opportunities from APC, that'd be great as well.
Even just type in, I know Shell used to always like to do snow or weapons.
So you can see like there's Pincher Creek, Wheatland County, Okotoks. So the City of Edmonton would also post their opportunities on here. So for the person who is asking whether or not the City of Edmonton had a similar website, their posting opportunities should all be posted on APC. You can also do different Alberta numbers. I had this all planned, but I'll just let it leave at this. Recognize there's a lot of opportunities that you can search. Once you get into the opportunity, let's do a fast load. Once you get into the opportunity, you can select it. Once you select it, you're going to get this wonderful opportunity here where you can say, I want to know who's been an interested supplier here. And you can look at all the interested suppliers that have noted interest in that opportunity. The other thing you can do is recognize that this opportunity is closing in 4 days and 2 hours. So that is how long you have to submit your proposal.
And notice that Michelle is doing all of this without registering. So this is all searches that you can do without even having registered. Just while you're typing in there, Michelle, I'm going to answer this. So how to use the GSIN code. So the list of GSIN codes as an example, I believe it's N2210 or N2220, which would be for vehicles. If that was the industry that you were in that search bar, you could put the GSIN code. I'll tell you probably the description is going to be the easier way that you can do the searches. So Michelle now has logged in to actually get to the opportunity.
And then you would just click on the opportunity, the documents within there, and they'll open up for you. Again, when I register, it's a free registration. You don't have any cost or anything like that associated with that registration. There's no cost to do any of the searching. There's no cost to submit your proposal. Now, that being said, I think we've got APC down. I'm going to just stop sharing APC now.
Okay. And just while you're switching, Michelle, I am just going to explain, and I know unfortunately we are running out of time. So when you do click on the opportunity itself, it is going to ask if you want to stay as an interested vendor. And I am going to encourage you to stay listed as an interested vendor. And the reason for that is if you remove yourself, if there is an amendment to that opportunity, you will not receive the notices. Some vendors prefer that they not show on that interested vendor list because they don't want other vendors to know that they are interested in responding. If that is your choice, just make sure that you check back often to make sure that there's been no amendments.
Perfect. Thank you, Marcy. Great tip. So we said it's at no cost. However, there is a premium membership that you can pay for on an annual basis. It's $200. What does this do for you? It gives you the ability to do some automatic search functionality. So it's like a robotic process automation functionality where you can set up to 12 different searches based on your organization and what opportunities would best meet the fit for your organization. What the system will do nightly is it'll search all those opportunities across APC, across all those jurisdictions, and we'll send you a lovely email to say, oh, here's some interesting opportunities that you might be interested in. So for $200, that will give you that ability. As well, there's some access to reporting information to understand the types of opportunities that you've purchased a bid on before and some of the options that you've been successful on. So there are some little key bonus opportunities for that $200 annual fee, should you be interested. Again, not a requirement to do business with Government of Alberta, just an opportunity to make your life a little bit easier and letting the system work for you rather than you typing in and doing all those searches directly. All right, so someone had mentioned previously, APC questions. If you have any questions related to APC, there's always information. This information can be located on the website itself as well. And now 1GX. Someone asked about a new system that we might be implementing. So this is it. Say hello to the future of procurement of government for the Government of Alberta. We introduce One Government Experience, or what we call 1GX. A modern system that uses SAP Ariba technology. And doing business with us is about to get a little bit easier, faster, and more cost effective. Suppliers will follow the same steps to bid, receive orders, complete invoicing, and get paid, regardless of whether the supplier is working with one department, multiple departments, or the entire Government of Alberta. On average, the Government of Alberta completes more than 200,000 annual transactions with suppliers. Some of the great benefits associated with this 1GX opportunity is it's reducing time and paper usage, removing the requirement to provide paper bids, or remembering an email address. It will be done all through 1GX. Standardizing process. The Government of Alberta is looking towards standardization of our processes. And it will provide you as a supplier real-time access to where your opportunity is at. This is where we would access the information for 1GX and how to bid. So I want to be clear, Alberta Purchasing Connection will continue to be your site. You will continue to go to Alberta Purchasing Connection to do all of your searches. When an opportunity is posted through Ariba in 1GX, that opportunity is transitioned over to APC and will show up on APC. In APC, you will see a link within the opportunity notice, and that link will take you to Ariba Discovery. Again, it's going to be at no cost to suppliers, which apparently normally is with this type of opportunity and this type of procurement platform, there is a cost to suppliers to do business. However, with going and doing business with the Government of Alberta, there is no cost to you. Suppliers will be able to view opportunities created in 1GX and at no cost use automation to submit bids, receipts and invoices, receive and fulfill orders, see where your payments are in the process online anytime, and receive payments faster. There's different account types that allow for this automation. So the Government of Alberta will be offering 2 types for the SAP Ariba accounts at no cost to suppliers. A standard account provides you with the basic features and functionality to do procurements with Alberta. A standard account is recommended for new, basic, and low volume users. It can be upgraded to an enterprise account at any time. So the standard account, you'll be able to log into Ariba Network, view the opportunities, submit bids, and work with the clients when you're doing the opportunity notice. For an enterprise account, you'll be able to do those advanced features like store documents, send documents within 1GX, and integrating your accounting systems with our accounting systems, which will then give you the opportunity to do all the invoicing directly through the system, obtain payments directly through the system. So those are the different types of the accounts. So where can you access additional information? I know I'm going over this really briefly. So all of the information about 1GX can be found at alberta.ca/1GX. It talks about the SAP Ariba business opportunity and the network. It includes information on a 1-hour supply summit that provides you a detailed overview of what 1GX is and what we're hoping to gain and some of the values that we're hoping to gain as an organization by moving towards the 1GX solution. The other great thing about the Ariba Discovery is any other opportunities that are posted through Ariba Discovery you have access to. There are some organizations that there might be a cost submit the bid, what if you view the opportunity, but at least you have that opportunity to view and access all of the opportunities across the REBA Discovery Network. All right.
So thank you guys for hanging in there with us. I know that we are over our time, so thank you for staying in there, and I hopefully we'll have some time for some of the final questions as well too.
Yes, thank you so much for staying a little bit over with us as well and giving us your time, Michelle and Marcy. I think our last question here is just around whether the government of Alberta has any special consideration for maybe Indigenous-owned businesses, such as a set-aside program.
Michelle?
That's a tough question. We don't necessarily have special considerations. We are working towards how we incorporate Indigenous and other types of entities across the organization. Sorry, not entities. Sorry, this one caught me off guard, obviously. We don't give special consideration for Indigenous opportunities. We are looking at ways to work with the Indigenous communities and support the Indigenous communities, absolutely. And we're looking at how we can improve our procurement processes to better support those opportunities, to support that community.
Yeah, so the one thing we have to be aware of is we still have to be compliant to the trade agreements, which at this point, unfortunately, put a little bit of a roadblock in there for us, but it's definitely something that we're looking at, and there is heavy consideration of within the government of Alberta.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. So everyone can see Michelle's information on the screen there. If you want to take a quick snapshot of that or note that down. If you have any specific questions that you would like to ask, you can send those to Michelle. And we'll just pop onto the, yes, the purchasing connection and our information here at Business Link. Sorry, the font is looking a little robotic, but that's okay. You can still hopefully read that there. That's our website, our phone number, our email if you want to get in touch with us at Business Link. Just want to thank everyone again for joining with us today, and thank you to Michelle and Marcy for presenting. If you did want to contact us at Business Link, again, you can email us at askus@businesslink.ca or call 1-800-272-9675. I will send these slides out later this afternoon to everyone who attended today, just so they can have those reference materials. And if you are looking for any other one-on-one advice, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, connect with us on social media, or view any of our recorded webinars that we've done in the past, you can check out our website again at businesslink.ca. You will receive an email as well just following the webinar with a link to an online survey. So we do appreciate you taking a few minutes to do that. And it helps Michelle and Marcy learn what you still need to know for next time. So we'll look at doing these every so often with the government of Alberta. And we thank you all, and thank you again, Marcy and Michelle, for taking the time today. We'll talk to you all soon. Stay warm.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today.
Bye.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it. Take care.
And thank you, Business Link.
Thank you.